Hey guys, it's December the 6th, 2025, and I hope everybody's been having a wonderful day so far today. I hope everybody's having a safe, sober start to their weekend as well. It's another nasty day here in South Carolina. We have just had a full week of rain and cold weather. And I was just reading something the other day. I don't know if I talked about this in a recent video or not, but I just saw an article the other day, and it was saying the governor for South Carolina was telling all the South Carolinians to prepare for like a really, really cold winter this year, and ice and stuff like that. Our trees and stuff down here, they're just not used to that kind of weather. So when we do get snow or ice and it builds up in our trees here, they break and the branches break. They're just not used to having snow load on them. So it creates a huge disaster when we get ice or snow here. We always lose power. It just ends up being a really big mess. And like I said, my governor was like, you guys get ready for this year. So we'll see what happens. I hope that it doesn't turn out to be that way this year. They were saying that all of the northeast this year is going to be super cold too. So it looks like it's going to be a pretty cold winter for everybody this year. So, be prepared. Make sure you got, everything that you need, water, fuel for your generator if you have one, stuff like that. But anyway, we had our little doggy sleepover last night downstairs. I'm tired. I did not sleep very well. The dogs kept jumping all over us last night. And the kids were laying. I was sleeping on the couch, and the kids decided to sleep on the floor, like right beside me. Anytime I'd go to get up in the middle of the night, if I had to go use the restroom, I tripped for my kids a bunch of times last night. I just didn't sleep very well. I'm tired today, but we had a really good time. We watched a movie last night. I can't remember the name of the movie that we watched. It ended up being pretty good. I think it was on Netflix. I'll have to think about what it was, and if any of you guys are interested in that movie, I can tell you in the comments. I can't remember what the name of it was. It was a horror movie. But anyway, what I wanted to talk about today is that hopeless feeling. And I was thinking about that this morning. My wife and I were watching something on Netflix, and these people were talking about just how they had gotten placed in these positions in life, and they just wanted to get out of them, but they continued to do so because they didn't see any way out. And it just really made me think about myself and how I felt that way. And it also made me think about some other thing. I watched another video this morning. It was a YouTube video, and it was by that lady, Nurse Julie. She has a YouTube channel. She's done some pretty good videos. I like her channel a lot. Any of you guys are interested, check out Nurse Julie's channel on YouTube. She's an alcoholic as well, or has AUD. I think she's 10 years sober at this point or something like that. She's got a really good channel, and she did a video once where she talked about her experience with having AUD and how she, was a functioning alcoholic and stuff like that. She's done videos on, what it's like to pass away with liver disease, which is a very, very scary video. I wouldn't suggest watching that unless you're highly interested and just want to know, but just be warned. She's done some really good videos. She did a recent video, I think just in the past couple of days, talking about, I think it was like the stages of alcoholism or something like that. But anyway, I was watching her video this morning and what she was talking about, and it really made me think about that as well. About that hopeless feeling, when you just feel like you can't get out of a certain situation, whatever it may be. And I know for myself, I felt hopeless, and I think, let me backtrack a little bit. I really do believe that this point in my life is when I really started to go downhill, and my drinking just spiraled out of control. I drank all through my 20s. I was a beer drinker, and I really didn't drink liquor that much. I would. I'm not going to say I never drank liquor. I would take shots here and there, but it got me really drunk, and I was kind of a lightweight back then. But I did drink a lot of beer, getting into my later 20s, and it got to the place where I was drinking a case of beer every day, more beer than that sometimes. But then when I got to around the age of 30, 32 years old, somewhere in that age range, and I know for a fact it was this period of time because I was at a job that I left. I was a general manager at a restaurant that I worked at for 14 years. I worked for that restaurant company for 14 years, or franchise. And, had worked there for a very long time. I'd worked my way all the way up from the very bottom. I was a dishwasher when I first started working there, and then I was a cook, and then worked my way up to kitchen manager, and then worked my way up to front of house manager, then to general manager. But that job, even though I was very appreciative for, how I was able to work my way up through that company, and they treated me rather well. I don't have a lot of bad things to say about, working for them. I've never talked about what the name of the company is or anything like that. I just would rather not. But my point to this is that around the age of 30, 32, somewhere around there, I was at that job at 30. I left, I think, right around 31 years old. And, right at that time, I'd gotten to this place where I just felt completely hopeless. I had lost all hope. I felt like I was going to be stuck working at a job like that for the rest of my life. And, it was one of those jobs where it was great when I was younger. But, at the place where I was at that point, I had a daughter who was, I guess, around like 8 years old during that period of time, 7 or 8 years old. I already had my first son was born, and I hadn't had my second child yet. I'm my third child yet, but he was about to be born very soon after that. But I wanted to spend more time with my kids. I wanted to spend more time with my family, and I was always at work. I was always at work. I was getting up first thing in the morning, 5 a.m., going to work, 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning every single day, and not leaving there until, midnight, 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning some days. It was a really hard job. It was a very, very busy restaurant. And we were one of those restaurants, too, that did training. We trained other managers at this establishment that I worked at. So, when I left, we weren't doing that. But we were a manager training restaurant for a long period of time, which, that's very stressful. You've got all these new managers in the building, and everything has to be done, completely correct, because these guys are training, so you have to show them there's no shortcuts. So it's just very strenuous, very hard job. And, I was really stressed out. And like I said, I didn't see any way out of where I was at. And I began to become hopeless. And in that hopelessness, I found liquor. Even though I had been drinking beer for a long time leading up before that, I just had never really drank liquor like that. And I remember the day that it happened. There was a competition that we had going on in the restaurant chain that I worked at. There was like 32 restaurants, and we were trying to sell some kind of, it was like a Bahama Mama or something like that, and they were trying to see who could sell the most of them. I don't remember what the promotion was and why they were trying to do it, but whatever store sold the most of these Bahama Mamas, won, and then on top of it, they gave us a case of free tequila. And I won. My restaurant won this competition to sell the most Bahama Mamas, and I went up to a manager meeting, and my boss handed me a whole case of tequila. And he's like, here, take this back to your store, and, to help your liquor cost. And I put it in the back of my Jeep and just completely forgot about it. And one night, I was standing in my garage with a bunch of neighbors, drinking beer that night, just having a good time. And I don't know what made me think about it. Maybe somebody mentioned, do you have any liquor or something? But for some reason, I opened up the back of the Jeep and pulled that box of wine, tequila out, and started taking shots. And it was that case of tequila that started that whole journey down that rabbit hole. And that's when things just got horrible for me. like I said, I'll never forget that night. I was drinking that tequila, and I just remember, just going straight to where I wanted to go. My experience had been for so long that, it took all day long to get intoxicated. I would catch a really strong, nice buzz, after about 7, 8 beers or something like that, but that still took time in itself. It's not like I got a buzz immediately. It took me an hour, hour and a half before I would start catching a buzz, but with the liquor, as soon as I popped that cap and started drinking, it was almost immediate. And that whole case of tequila was gone within a matter of days. I still was drinking the beer, but I was drinking more of the tequila than anything else. And then it just got to the point when I finished off that case of tequila, it's like, there's no point in drinking beer like that anymore. Even though I still drank beer all the way up to the end of my drinking, it became all about the tequila. And in that moment, that's when, like I said, everything started falling apart, and it was all due to me being so hopeless, at my job. I didn't know what else to do. I was so depressed, and that alcohol came like right at it was like the perfect moment for the two of us to encounter each other, and it was like love at first sight. Like I said, I felt so hopeless, and then here comes this substance that, makes me not feel hopeless anymore. And all I did was continue to drink, just drink and drink and drink and drink and drink every single day. I wanted to feel that way all the time. I wanted to feel that numb feeling. I did not want to feel the pain. I didn't want to feel that hopeless feeling. I wanted out of that job. I didn't know what to do. Now, I did eventually end up leaving that job, and things really got bad after that happened. But, I wanted out of that job, and I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have really any other experience with anything else in life. And in my mind, I kept thinking, I've got to get out of the restaurant industry. I already knew my drinking was a problem. I already was a problem drinker with beer. And in my mind, this is the first time that this happened. I'm thinking, if I leave this job, it's going to help me to be able to stop drinking. It's going to help me to be able to get my life back in order if I leave the job, because the job's making me so sad. It's making me so depressed. It's making me hate my life. And I'll never forget, one day I took a piece of paper and I wrote pros and cons on it, and started writing the pros on one side and started writing the cons on the other. And man, the cons were just, I went down the list, and I had divided the piece of paper with a pen, and I just, I drew a line straight down the middle of the piece of paper. So I didn't want to cross over onto the other line for the cons, or for the pros, but I just kept writing cons. And I went front page, back page, and then I had to get another piece of paper to fill out all the cons that I had. And then on the pros, there was like 3 or 4 things that I had on there. And I carried that list around with me for weeks. I would show it to the, the food distributors when they would come in to deliver food. I'd whip that piece of paper out and say, look at this, man. I want to get out of this job so bad. I hate it here. My life sucks. I never see my family. I'm always at work. I'm always depressed. I drink all the time. And I'm drinking just to drown out my feelings, because I feel so lost, and I feel like I'm never going to be able to move past this. This is going to be my life forever. Working until 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning every single day. And that was, and that's it. And every single day that I would come home, every night, everybody else is asleep. I'd get up in the morning to go to work. Everybody was asleep. I was never seeing my family at all. On the weekends, I get up on Saturday morning, I kiss everybody goodbye while they're asleep. I get home at night, they're back in the bed asleep. I'm kissing them on the cheek and I'm going to bed. It was just tearing me up inside. And like I said, I was going around showing this to my other managers, because they knew I was unhappy. I was showing it to the food distributors. I was showing it to customers. And I just didn't know what to do. I felt so hopeless. And in that moment of feeling so hopeless, like I said, I found alcohol, the liquor, and instead of trying to do something serious about, what really was going on in my life, the root cause of my problem, instead of trying to address that, I just drank it all away. I drank until I didn't feel anything anymore. And then once I stopped feeling things, then I just would pass out. And I did that every single time. It just really, now looking back in hindsight, I know what was going on with me back then. I just would drink until I'd pass out, that I didn't have to think about anything anymore. I was afraid to lose my job or leave my job because I didn't know how I was going to support my family. And I knew that, I had to support them, but I didn't know what else to do. And I was afraid. I didn't have an education. I was a guy that, came up hard knock. I learned everything, on my own or had people teach me, but I didn't go to culinary school. So I didn't have a degree. I didn't have anything else to fall back on. And, I have kids and a mortgage and, I'm not sitting here, saying that my story is a sad one by any means, because I was very blessed with what I had. I'm just saying that this was what was going on in my mind. I just felt completely hopeless. And this is one of those things that I've spoken about too, about it being relative to our lives. I've never been wealthy by any means or anything like that. I worked really hard to get to where I was, to have a house and all that. I've been working since I was a teenager. And like I said, I didn't have an education. I worked my way up, and I got there because I worked hard. But it got to a certain point where it's like, I have to make a change. I've got to do something else. I've got to, get into another career or something. And like I said, I didn't know what else to do. I didn't have any idea what else I wanted to do. I didn't have anything else to fall back on. I was afraid. I felt completely hopeless. I was so depressed. I felt like I was backed up against a wall, and I was surrounded by enemies. I just really did not know what to do. And once I started drinking that tequila, it was like a warm blanket was placed over me, and everything was going to be okay after that. And that's how I felt. And every single time that I drank, I felt like everything's just going to be okay. And it got to the point where I was so tired of feeling that hopeless feeling, like I'm just never going to be able to spend time with my family. I'm never going to be that dad that gets to go, play baseball with their son on the weekends because I'm always at work. So, here I am, I'm just going to just drink. And, I wanted to feel that warm blanket on me all the time. I wanted to feel comforted. It was like somebody had wrapped their arms around me, and I could place my head on their shoulder and just go to sleep. I mean, that's kind of the way it felt. It's crazy. Alcohol, it all affects us differently, and it affects some of us in a way, where we get this ultimate euphoria from it. It's so hard to describe. And I know for myself, that's the way it made me feel back then. Towards the end of my drinking, I wasn't feeling good at all anymore. I was chasing that feeling, and I was going after it every single time I went to the liquor store. That's what I wanted to feel. Every time I cracked that bottle open and poured myself another drink, that's what I wanted to feel, but it never got me there anymore. All I was doing was just, putting back the sick feeling. That's all I was doing. Even though I felt sick, I wasn't going to go through withdrawals and be hungover. I just felt like crap all day long, but I wasn't going through the withdrawals at the same time. And that's all it was. But, back then, I just wanted to feel that pure euphoria. And I've spoken about this, but some people, the way that their body chemistry works out, we get this effect called the opioid effect with alcohol. And what ends up happening is that some people, when they drink, the majority of people when they drink, alcohol is a sedative. It's a depressant. It makes the majority of people sleepy, tired, feel a little lethargic. It just slows them down. But for some individuals, which for myself, I'm like this, and I'm sure that a lot of you watching this right now, alcohol affected you in this manner as well. It didn't do that. When I drank, it wound me up. When people were, going to sleep. It's, we're all hanging around a bonfire, drinking and having a party, and it's 10 o'clock at night. And you know how you'll start seeing people just kind of drop like flies, one after another. People start to disappear. It happens at parties, it happens at bars, it happens, anytime there's a bunch of people drinking. Slowly but surely, people just start to drop away because they get tired, they get intoxicated, they want to go to sleep. But for people like myself and for people like a lot of you, I would imagine, we were the ones that were still awake. We were wide open at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, just wide open. Alcohol gave you energy. I know it gave me so much energy. It just made me feel alive. I got the opioid effect from it, I guess. And I just got this pure euphoria. And I wanted to feel that all the time. I mean, I didn't want to feel that hopeless feeling anymore. I just wanted to feel that pure euphoria. And I guess my point to today's video is that I would imagine that there's somebody out there watching today's video that's feeling that way right now. You have that feeling of being hopeless. You're stuck in some situation, whatever it is, and you don't know a way out. And you feel like maybe what it is that whatever the way out of this situation that you're in that's making you feel hopeless is a really hard way out. It's going to take a ton of work to get out of it. It could be anything. Maybe you don't like your job and you want to get out of it. And maybe you're doing just like I was, working too many hours, not seeing your family enough, and you want to make a change, but you're afraid to. You're afraid to take that leap. It's scary. I completely get it. I know. You go out there, you're afraid that if you go out there and take that leap and maybe go start a business or something like that, then you fail. It's all going to fall back on you, and then your kids aren't eating, the lights get cut off, whatever. It's scary. I completely get it. But maybe it's something like that, or maybe you have a family member that you just don't want to be around anymore. Maybe you're married to somebody. Maybe you're in a relationship and you don't see any way out of it. And maybe it's an abusive relationship, or maybe the person that you are with gets intoxicated and becomes violent or something like that. Or it could be anything. It could be any situation that you're in your life and you don't see a way out of it. So what you do is you go buy a case of beer or a couple bottles of wine or a bottle of liquor, and you pour yourself a big drink, and you drink those problems all away. You drink that hopeless feeling away. And what you're doing is you're just sitting there drinking it until you feel that warm blanket, that euphoria feeling, and you're like, you know what, I'm not worried about it now. You get that comfort, that instant comfort, and then the long run problem just continues to be a problem. So what ends up happening is you get caught in that cycle. The problem doesn't get solved. You're still stuck in that hopeless feeling like I was, and your only solution is just to continue to drink every single day. Every day when you get off of work or whenever you get an opportunity, you're running to sneak off and, slam a pint of vodka or whatever it is, just to get that warm blanket feeling really quick. And then you're back in that feeling again where it's just like, you know what? You just feel comfortable, and that's all you were looking for in that moment. But once again, that problem's still there. Whatever it is that's making you feel hopeless, it's still there. It's not being solved. And my point to today's video is that whatever it is in your life that's making you feel hopeless right now, like I said, it's your family situation, your work situation. Maybe it's where you live. Maybe you have some health problems going on or something like that. What can you do to solve that problem? Really take a hard look at what it is that needs to get solved, because, a lot of times, we run to quit drinking or quit whatever it is, thinking it's gonna solve the problem right there, right away, is just stop. And, people tell us sometimes, just pull yourself up by your bootstrap, and why can't you just quit? It's harder than that sometimes. I mean, it just is. And quitting using or drinking is not easy. Sometimes we have to really look at the root cause of what it is causing us to want to feel that warm blanket. What is it? What's the root cause of that hopeless feeling? If that is what it is that, is influencing you to drink or use the way that you are, or indulge in whatever the activity is. What is it? Can you address that situation that's making you feel hopeless? Can you fix it? If it's your job, can you leave it? I was having a conversation with somebody just not too long ago, and they were telling somebody very close to me, and they were telling me that, they hated their job, and they didn't want to work there anymore. And this person that I know is, they drink alcohol. And in this conversation, they were saying, I'm just tired of working at this job. I want to get out of it. And, I said to them, then why don't you just leave? And, they said, well, it's not that easy. You don't understand the situation that I'm in. And, what I was talking to them about was, why are they still continuing to drink? And I wasn't lecturing them about it, really. I was just, just kind of bringing it up just a little bit, like maybe, just hinting at the fact that maybe you ought to think about stopping or slowing down. And, as soon as I mentioned that, it went straight to, I can't leave my job. You don't realize how hard it is. And, that's why I drink, because I'm so stressed out because of my job. And I told this person, what's more important to you, your job or your life? And I didn't want to be that dramatic about it, but that's just the honest to God truth of this, because it is. What's more important, your job or your life? Because if he stays at that job and continues to work there, but continues to drink in the fashion that they are, in order to continue to work at that job, eventually it's going to catch up to them. And they're going to end up with some kind of alcohol-induced disease or something, and then what? That job's still going to be there. Somebody else is going to take it, and now you've gotten sick, and you've ended up in the hospital and potentially, have some kind of disease like cirrhosis or something. And that's it for the rest of your life. You have cirrhosis, all because this person thought that they needed to stay at that job. And this person is very smart and very talented and could go work anywhere they want. But I think they're at that place where they're hopeless right now, and they don't see a way out. And sometimes, we get those goggles on, or we get the blinders on, and we just can't see past looking straight. We can't see what's beside us. Sometimes we got to step back and take a hard look around us, step back and look at everything from all angles and really, really think about what can you do to solve that situation. And I'm not making today's video and trying to influence anybody to go out there and make some huge change in their life or anything like that. But what I am saying is if that you do have that feeling of hopelessness and you're using or drinking in excess in order to feel that warm blanket, that euphoria, that feeling of I just don't care anymore, I just want you to think about what it is that's causing you to feel that way. And is there a solution to that? I'm not saying, run off and, quit your job tomorrow or anything like that. There could be a long-term solution to it. It could be something where you go out and just, you just take a shot and start putting out some applications out there and start feeling things out. And maybe go out on a job interview. Maybe go find a job first that will make you happy and then leave your job, and it might make you, feel unhappy for another month or two until you find another job. But, at least you're working toward those goals. And I will guarantee you that just the process of working towards, getting yourself out of that hopeless feeling and working towards a goal that you have set for yourself is just already going to make you feel better deep inside anyway. It's already going to start to fix some problems for you just by starting to work on it. You're going to feel accomplished. You're going to feel like you're actually doing something about what's going on in your life. Something I never did. I thought, like I said, that quitting my job, running away from it was going to fix everything, but I didn't do any other work. I just left my job, continued to drink, continued to do the same things I was doing at my job before. It wasn't the job at the end of the day. It was myself. I had no control of my drinking, and the drinking got to the place where, you know, I was drinking so much that I felt like I couldn't leave to go anywhere else because my alcoholism had gotten so bad that I was drinking all the time. Where else am I going to go work where I can wake up in the morning, have a couple of beers, and show up to work, and I'm not going to get fired for it? My boss wasn't there breathing down my neck every single day, smelling my breath. I was there by myself. And, you know, that's one of the reasons that I continue to work there, because I knew that I couldn't get away with that anywhere else. But that was the whole circle and the cycle that was leading to that hopeless feeling that I felt. I really didn't sit down and think about every single aspect of this. Like I said, take those blinders off and look at it from every single angle. Look at it from the back, from the side, from the other side. What can I do to solve this? I never did that. Anyway, guys, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here for today. I hope that today's video helped anybody out there that might be dealing with this right now. And like I said, if that's the situation that you're in right now, and that's the reason that you're drinking or using the way that you are, you know, don't just go jumping ship today and making some life-changing decision tonight and, you know, doing something radical. What I'm saying is really think about it. Take a look at it and get down to the root cause of what's making you feel hopeless, and what can you do to address that? Is there a way to fix it? Because if you can fix that feeling, that problem that's causing you to feel so hopeless, is absolutely going to help you on the backside into getting or staying sober. You know, and I never realized that before. I never realized that it wasn't about just stopping drinking, that I had other issues that I needed to address first. And, you know, it's one of the things that over the past couple of years, like I said, I journal every single day. I write all these things down. I can go back and look at them. I can go back and look 2 years ago and see what I was thinking and how I was feeling about how my life was going versus now. And when I go back and look at some of the stuff that I was writing down back at the beginning of this channel starting, I was sad. You know, I was depressed back then. And I can honestly say that I feel so much better mentally than I did now than I did then. And I'm sure that, you know, my health has improved. I'm sure that plays a huge role in it. You know, and I do have, you know, a couple more years of sobriety at this point now, which I think helps a lot. I'm a lot more comfortable in it. But there's other aspects of it, things that I've done work on. You know, I write things down in my journal, and I know to go back and say, you know, I need to really think about whatever this is, and I'll write it down the next day and write it down the next day. And did I get that, you know, a solution to that problem? And it gives me something to be able to go back and remember things. It's one of the reasons I think that journaling is so important and writing stuff down, because we really do tend to forget. You ever get that really good idea? Like, you'll have some great idea. You'll be like, you know what? I've got this great idea. And then you don't write it down. And then you forget. And then you're kicking yourself in the can for days going, I cannot remember what that was. One thing I do too is I have one of those notepad apps on my phone, and they're free on the Play Store if you have Android. I don't know anything about Apple. I've never owned one, but I guess they have the Apple Store. You probably could get one on that store for free as well. But I keep one of those notepads, and it's on my home screen on my phone. I actually have it on the outside screen as well. I've got one of those flip phones, but I'm always in my notebook because I'm always writing stuff down. If I get a thought, an idea for a show, you know, an idea about something for myself that I need to work on, something I need to write down in my journal, something that I really need to sit down and think about and journal in my book, I'll jump into my notepad and write it down real quick. I'm always in that notepad, especially when I'm like watching things on YouTube or something like that. I'll get inspiration for videos, inspiration for things I need to work on in my life, just all kinds of things. You know, when I get one of those little ideas, I stop. And if I don't have a piece of paper in my notebook right beside me or a pen in my notebook, I'll just grab that notepad and write it in there, and then I can transfer it later on. And I just think it's a great way, like I said, to remember things, write stuff down, you know, especially when you're brainstorming about what it is that's making you feel hopeless. You know, start with an idea, start writing stuff down, you know, branching off of, you know, write a word and branch off of that with other ideas and just brainstorm on paper. It's so crazy when you actually brainstorm on the paper and that pen hits that paper. It's like your brain transfers onto that paper and your thoughts are physically moving down to that, there's something that happens when you do that. There's a connection that happens. I really do believe in it. And it really opens up some just pathways in your mind or something. It just really helps me think. And, like I said, I'm writing stuff down. I'm not forgetting a little thought that I just had a second ago. And I can really just kind of go down rabbit holes that way. It's a lot easier to do so. And like I said, I can go back at a later date and look at those notes and see what I was thinking, or maybe I had a great idea for something that I forgot about, or whatever it is. I can see the progression of working on myself by looking at those journals. I just think it's a great thing to do. But anyway, I hope that whoever you are out there watching this today, like I said, got something out of today's video. And I hope that if there's something in your life that's making you feel hopeless, I hope that you can figure out what that is. And I hope that you can figure out a path to a solution to that feeling of hopelessness. And I hope that whatever that is helps you on your journey and path to sobriety. And I hope today's video helped whoever you are out there today watching. So with that said, I'm going to go ahead and hop off of here for today. Thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. And like I said, I won't be here tomorrow, guys. I've got a doctor's appointment on Monday, but I will be back. I'll be back on Monday. I'm just not going to have a video for tomorrow so that the comments don't get moved over into Monday and I'm not able to reply to them. So it'll just give me a little heads up going into this week, because like I said, I've got a bunch of stuff going on. So I apologize, I won't be here tomorrow, but I did want to just be able to spend a day with my family as well and just hang out with them. So with that said, I will see you guys on Monday. Thank you so much for watching. I love you guys so much, and until then, y'all have a great one. Bye.